This is The Road Show, and I'm your host, David Warren. Well, today is Therapy Day with our good friend Kim Har, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. Today's topic is Kim's Top 10 Reasons Couples Come for Counseling. Actually, this is part 2, or the rest of the top 10 reasons couples make an appointment to see Kim. Welcome back, Kim Har.
Thank you for having me, David.
Okay, well, I'm ready to dive in, but I'm even more ready to hear about the Har family because it's kind of becoming a tradition that on the front end, we hear a Hardy Har Har story, and that's your real name, H-A-A-R.
That's
Kim
right.
Har. Okay, what do you have for us today before we dive into more couples issues?
You know, I was trying to think what's been going on in the Har home, and the most recent is we survived a mice invasion, which was like a mouse apocalypse at our home.
Now, define invasion. 1, 5,
10.
Okay.
10. But it's really bad because I am not scared of very many things. Mice are one thing that I will admit I am petrified of. I know that they're little, but it goes back to when I was really, really little. I was probably 3 or 4 years old. We lived in Canada, and my family was coming home from church, and we lived in the country, and my mom and all my siblings got inside the house, but somehow a rat had gotten inside our house. And so they chased it out into the veranda porch area, but I had not made it inside the house yet. And so all the doors got shut, and me and the rat were in this little porch area. And as you can imagine, a 3 or 4-year-old, we're running in circles. I'm running away from the rat's running away from me, but the rat thinks I'm chasing it, and I think the rat is chasing me.
So you're suffering from a little PTSD here.
You know, I think that there's a little PTSD there. And so everybody at my house knows I do not like even the idea of a mouse. And about, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I had some friends over, some girlfriends over, and I could have sworn I saw something out of the corner of my eye. And I told my husband, I said, I don't know, but I think I saw something. And he just kind of played it down. No, I'm sure it's nothing. And of course, he knows how I feel about mice. And I'll shorten the story to say we caught one and then we caught another. And he would say, I'm sure that was the last of them. But we live across from a lot that is not built on by our house. And so I'm sure that that's where they came from because it's warm in our house. And we kept catching one and we kept catching one. And this one day I came home.
Catch and release?
Maybe not catch and release. Maybe not catch and release. I will say I don't know what happened to them. How's that? Because we used the regular traps didn't work. They weren't catching anything. So we tried those new sticky traps. And somebody told me if you put a Tootsie Roll on there, that actually you cut it up, that will attract them. And it did. So that's my free advice for anybody that needs to catch a mouse. Use a Tootsie Roll. And so I come home, and on these sticky traps, a mouse runs across it, and it gets stuck. And so I come home from work, and it was several hours before my husband was to come home. And I see this mouse coming out from under my pantry, dragging a sticky trap. And its back feet are on it. But to me, it is coming to get me. And so I literally jumped on the love seat in our living room. And I texted my son, who works about 1.5 miles from me. And I just texted and said, come quick, I need help. And then I thought, well, that could kind of scare him. I need to let him know it's a mouse. So I said, mouse. And he never responded. And I thought, okay, what do I do? And I will be honest, the first thought was I could call 911, but I didn't because I'm responsible and I wasn't going to take 911. But I thought I could jump over, go sit in my car, go away until my husband came home. And so I sent my neighbor, because I videoed the mouse, a little bit of it, and I sent it to my neighbor woman, and I said, is your husband home? And she looked at my little video, and she said, he's on his way. And so here comes the neighbor man in the house. I just point where a big Amazon box was. And I said, just put it in there and take it away. Because I didn't even want it left at my house. And so he came in. He saved the day. He's my new hero. And we are now mouse-free at the Har House.
How long ago was the last mouse spotting?
Probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay, that's a very good sign. Did you sleep with one eye open for a little while?
Absolutely. And you know, it's like I wanted to put like towels under the bottom of the door, lock the door. I mean, I would not go in the kitchen without boots on. And because I didn't want something to run across my feet. And then if you've ever seen the old Disney movie, The Parent Trap, where they scared this woman that there's like a tiger in the woods or something like that, and she takes drumsticks and she like beats them together to make a noise.
Right.
Well, I would go through the kitchen and I would be stomping my feet, talking really loud, hitting the doors. And so it's been 2.5 weeks. We still have 5 traps in the pantry, 7 in the garage, 1 under the sink, and I will check them to make sure that there's nothing there.
And
But
Tootsie Rolls on the ready.
Tootsie Rolls, I got the jumbo bag. I told my husband, if I see another one, we're going to a hotel. So I'm very thankful that I think they're all gone.
I love it.
I am glad you love it. I'm glad they're gone.
Well, that's not what I thought you would be telling us today, but it's so nice to know that you are rodent-free. I don't know if a mouse is considered a rodent. Probably
Yes, it
a
is.
rat is.
Yes, it is. Did you think I'd be talking about my granddaughter?
No.
Usually I talk about being a grandmother. And,
Well, okay. Do you want to sneak in any grandma talk before we move on?
you know, I'll just say when she came over 2 days ago, she asked me if the mouse traps could get her. And so her and I, we go through the kitchen and we still stomp our feet and we sing, "Oh, the mouse can't get us." So that's my story.
All right. We'll stick to therapy. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're picking back up where we left off last time on your top 10 reasons couples come to you or go to you for marriage counseling. And I do want to mention that we only covered 4 of the 10 reasons, and those were, and I'm saying this because they're archived. I mean, that program is archived, so you'll want to hear that after you hear this program. Don't go anywhere. But back on part 1, we covered the reasons of breakdown in communication. That's why they might go to see you, the couples. Conflict and arguments, trust and commitment issues, and also emotional intimacy versus physical intimacy. So part 1, the other program, is archived in the Roadshow section of our website, along with today's program, by the way, and that is found on our website, oasisnetwork.org. Just click on the Roadshow tab, and you'll find Kim Har's name there near the top, or something that says therapy session. And by the way, Kim, we were going to wait till the end, but for those that heard part 1, tell us about something special you have for our listeners today.
Yes, I brought along after we go through this session today, if anybody that is listening would like to email me at kim@there'shopehere.com, I have got a handout that talks about 20 tips to cultivate a lasting marriage that's going to sustain you through time, and it's a nice little PDF handout, and I would gladly email that to any of the listeners.
Okay, again, on the email address?
It's kim@there'shopehere.com.
All right, again, today we're picking back up with the 10 reasons couples go to see Kim for marriage counseling, and when we come back from the break, we will start with reason number 5, and that has to do with finances. So maybe arguing over lack of, spending of, or hiding of. Boy, we've got a lot to talk about today. Back after this. I'm David Warren, here with some exciting news for Oasis listeners. We have a new mobile device app. It's free, easy to download, and lets you enjoy our refreshing music and talk everywhere you go. If you have an Android cell phone, go to the Google Play Store. And if you have an iPhone or iPad, visit the Apple Store and search for Oasis Radio Network. Be an Oasis ambassador and share this news with family and friends around the world.
I came to this place
And we're back. I'm David Warren here with Kim Har. She is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist, but really bad at getting rid of mice. Today's topic, more of the 10 reasons couples see you for marriage counseling. And we're going to pick up now with number 5, the 5th reason, finances.
That's right. You know, finances is one of those things a lot of couples really don't address in even their premarital counseling. And so they come to marriage with both unspoken expectations and unrealistic expectations. So you know, a couple may think, well, this is the way I've always done it. This is the way we're going to do it. They don't talk about what role money's going to have in their relationship. And so one of the very first things is we've got to get them on an agreement page versus we just disagree about everything. And you mentioned that there's a part of, you know, some of the issues are, you know, the way people spend are different. Mm-hmm. The way they think about money is different, which causes a really big problem. And you mentioned hidden money. And when we talk about like couples that hide money from each other, it can be where I've got some money that you don't know about and I've got a secret bank account, or but it can also be where it's this mentality of, well, this is my money and this is your money, versus this is our money together. And many couples will say, you know what, we're going to budget in and we're each going to have some fun spending money. And that may be, you know, hey, I'm not accountable for the fun spending money. If I want to go, you know, spend it all on scrapbooking things, or you want to spend it on going to the gun range, or vice versa, we're not, you know, we don't have to, you know, agree on how we're going to spend that because that's allocated that way. Too many couples don't do that, though, and they take the money that is ours as a couple and they make unilateral decisions of how it will be spent, where it will be spent. And when I talk about the meaning of money, there is many different meanings of money, but to some people, money is more security. You know, if you've grown up without a lot of money, money is, you may be the saver in the relationship, and there's this feeling of we never have enough. We always have to, you know, save up for a rainy day, and it may be imbalanced that maybe I don't allow for any fun because everything has to be saved, everything has to be put away, but spending is more of a security. Whereas to somebody else, spending and the meaning of money might be more money's for enjoyment. Money is, you know, easy come, easy go. And if you've got it, you spend it and you enjoy life. Life is short. So let's just spend what we have and we can always get more.
So sometimes couples see you because they're not in agreement on this issue, and they're hoping that you will tell the other spouse that they're right.
Yes, and I think that it's not just that they want me to tell the other spouse. I think there's a part of coming in and they don't even realize. They just come in saying, we're arguing about this, we're not agreeing, and they don't know what to do. And now I am not a budget counselor. I'm not, you know, I stay in my lane, but I help them get to the point of realizing we've got to have common goals. We've got to come into unison and be on the same page. And when I talk about unrealistic expectations, that may mean somebody thinks, well, we have to agree about, you know, why we spend, what's important, what's not important. And it's not about agreeing. It's more about how do we come to a compromise and make a decision that this is how we're going to spend our money. I want to hear from you. You want to hear from me. But we don't have to agree, you know, on the basic. I don't have to agree that everything you have is spent or everything that we get should be saved. It's more how do we come together and say, okay, you know what? It's important to me to save some money. And it's important for you to have some spending money. So how do we bring those two together? And how can we actually make it a common goal?
But it needs to be discussed.
It absolutely needs to be discussed. And this is where, ideally, these are things to be talked about before you're even in a relationship. Because, you know, there's disagreements on if I say, hey, we agree we're going to buy a car. And we say, yes, we need a car. We're in agreement on that. But what if your idea of a new car is brand spanking new from the dealership with 0 miles, and my idea of a new car is something with, you know, 75,000 miles on it? That's a new car to me. whether it is, and I see this many times with young couples, is they want now what they've seen their parents who have worked a lifetime for it. They want what their parents have now, and they want it right now. Mm-hmm. And so starter homes, sometimes when I look at nowadays starter homes, man, if I think of my starter home, it was a small home and I had 4 kids in it. And that starter home, well, through the years, I've worked and saved and my house has gotten a little bit bigger. And so a starter home now may not be an apartment. People are coming out thinking my starter home needs to be $500,000. And so it's really, I would say some of the tools that I give clients, there's a part of being able to say, first of all, set realistic goals, but have the same goals and then have transparency in how you're spending your money. So it's not about, you may decide one person is better at, writing the bills out or staying on top of those, but both of you guys should know, where's our money going? And if you don't have those skills, then there are lots of places, I like to refer out to Ramsey Solutions with Dave Ramsey. He's a Christian financial advisor, and there are lots of areas. There's lots of free credit counseling if you're in debt. Lots of couples don't agree. We may agree we use credit cards, but I may want to pay the entire balance off at the end of every month, and you may think making the minimum payment is good enough. And so it's really getting on the same page, setting those goals, and, not doing things as a unilateral decision.
And no hiding money or gold or things like that from the other
You know what?
partner.
If you feel like you have to hide something from your partner, it's the beginning, it's secrecy. And when there's secrecy and I'm holding back from you, that's going to come back to bite me. And that can be a seed of other areas. I may begin having a secret stash of money here or a secret this or that. And it doesn't mean, I laugh because in the Har home, I grew up, and for me, money is more security. Mm-hmm. And to my husband, it's more the enjoyment. And so he knows, you know what, man, if I have a client that pays me in cash, that's like my emergency money. And I may have an envelope or I may have this, and we laugh because he knows where it is. He knows he has access to it. There's no secrets. And he knows that when I go to the Disney princess store and I see a little princess dress, I'll look at him and smile and I'll say, now this is an emergency. So it's really more kind of that may be my fun money, but we share in everything, and it's never, ever, ever in any area of your marriage keep secrets from your spouse.
All right. The 6th reason why couples go to see you, Kim, is a mismatch in raising the kids, in parenting styles, and also just the challenges that come along with having a blended family.
Yeah. Parenting is hard. I think parenting is one of the hardest jobs you can do. I used to think that as your kids get older, parenting gets easier. And I think I've changed my mind. I think it gets harder because when they're younger, you've got a little bit more control of decisions and what they're doing, and you can put them in timeout. And when they're older, you let go. And that, that parent heart, that's a hard thing sometimes. So with parenting, and again, this is really, a lot of times it's unspoken expectations. We don't talk about it. So we don't talk about, how are we going to discipline our children? Because that's a big one of what couples disagree on. And a lot of times what happens is the way I was parented or disciplined, unless it was abusive. But if I was raised a certain way and discipline worked for me, that's my idea of how I want to discipline my kids. Mm-hmm. And my spouse, the way they were raised and disciplined, that's the way they believe, hey, no, this is the way I want to discipline our kids. And so many times you get one parent that's more rigid and one parent that's more permissive. And it can actually get so out of balance because if you've got more of a permissive parent that, I'm always extending grace and, if I think my partner or my spouse, my husband or wife, if I think they're being too harsh, and too harsh might be if I enforce a consequence. So I'm not talking about, heavy spankings, but if I think that, man, my partner is really being harsh, they're maintaining a consequence they had. They took something away from the kids. All of a sudden, I may overcompensate because I want to bring that back in balance. So now I can let them get away with anything and everything.
So how could a husband and wife meet in private, obviously, and predetermine how to handle situations in the future where there needs to be discipline?
Right. In the area of discipline, I always suggest don't wait until you need it. Don't wait until there's something that needs a consequence. And, I am, in addition to being a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional counselor, for probably 15 years, I was a national trainer of parenting programs. And so I've got years and years of experience. And what we would teach is we would talk about what is the behavior that we don't want to see. But it's not just focusing on what we don't want, it's giving our kids the behavior we do want. So for instance, if you've got kids inside that are yelling and screaming, and I'm saying, don't yell inside the house, don't do this, don't do this, all I'm giving them is the don'ts, but I need to give them the do. Do go yell outside with the ball. Do go outside and, so I'm not saying just don't. I'm saying this is what we do. And then you set up, and I always suggest have that conversation with a family. Hey, what are those morals and values that we as a family, hold? And then as parents, you get together, not in the moment, but you decide, okay, so if we have problems in a certain area, how do we want to handle that? And as parents, I always say, give yourself space to take a time out. You don't have to give a consequence in that moment. You can say there's going to be a consequence, but we want to talk about it and think about it, and we're going to come back. So you don't want to be kind of grabbing at the first thing you're thinking of. Otherwise, your consequences are usually way overloaded. And then you backtrack on what you've said, and then your kids learn you don't mean what you say.
With all your training in parenting in the past, what kind of input would you have for parents of a blended family?
Yeah.
Let's say the dad has 2 biological children and the mom has 3.
Right.
Okay, so let's say that the mom's children are acting up. Can the stepdad, step in, so to speak,
right.
Or should you kind of draw lines based on blood?
Sure. I think that there's a part of you need to have the same family rules for all involved. And that's not just the kids, that's for the parents too. We all abide by these. And you can, when you're in agreement on it, you guys can have the same rules, the same boundaries, the same consequences, but I always suggest that the biological parent be the one that actually carries out the consequence. At least until a step-parent has earned the right, not just coming in, I'm a new step-parent, so now I'm going to lay down the law. That's not going to work. That's going to cause resentment and anger. And so there's a part of I've got to be, in as a step-parent role. If my kids are really young when a step-parent comes in and they've raised these children and they are, they don't know other than that, that's going to be different than if I've just married somebody and there's a new step-parent. I think that there's a lot of myths with blended families, and that is that the kids are just all going to be happy. We're all going to be the Brady Bunch. This is going to be wonderful. And I think that that's an unrealistic expectation, because it takes time for families to figure out and to get into an equilibrium that balances that family out. And I think some of the mistakes that parents and step-parents make is forcing the children to call a step-parent mom or dad. I think that that's a conversation to be had in asking, what does the child want to call that parent? Mm-hmm. Because they can be dealing with a lot of emotions that a parent doesn't realize. If I've remarried and I've got a step-parent, if my husband is a step-parent, and mine is, but we had older adult kids, so we didn't have to do the blending of the children. But if he comes in the home and I'm telling my kids, you have to call him dad, first of all, they can get frustrated and angry with me. They can feel guilty, like they're doing something wrong with their biological father. It's like, no, that's my dad. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's really a conversation, and it's important to really honor feelings that as an adult, we get to choose if we're going to be remarried. Our kids don't get to choose that. they come along and they have to deal with our decisions and they have to accommodate. And blended families is really, it's a tough thing. And I suggest absolutely go to family therapy if you need to. Get some outside help. There's some great books on blending families and with adult children.
I was going to ask because for those that don't know, Kim, how long have you been married to Andrew now?
Andrew and I have been married 6 years.
6 years. And you have how many children?
I have 4 biological, 3 are married. So on my side, 7. He's got 3. One's married, one's got a partner, a boyfriend. And so we've got, what would that be, 5 on his side? So we've got 12. We're bringing in 12 adult children, plus Andrew and I. And then we like to say we bring my mom and dad too.
Okay, so obviously you're not spanking his children, but is there a grown-up version of that where you need to back off in giving input?
I think that when you've got adult children, especially when you go into a marriage with adult children, it is looking at them as, I don't try to be my husband's children. I don't try to be their stepmom. You know what? They know me as the head. This is Dad's wife. They call me Kim. This is Dad's wife. They love the fact that I love their dad and they see their dad loving me. And we're living an example to them. It's not my role to be telling his kids what to be doing or putting my nose in or giving my opinion. Now, I can ask, would you like, I have a thought. Would you like that thought? But I need to respect that, and I need to give them that space. And the same thing with my husband, with Andrew. You know what? My kids, now all my kids have a different relationship with him because my youngest 2 are twins, and they lived with us for like a year when the pandemic was going on. So they were in a daily relationship with him, and my daughter especially says, man, I love him so much. He's not just my stepdad. I love him, and he's amazing. And all my kids love Andrew, but they all have a little bit of a different relationship. And they all love, they all respect, but they know Andrew as this is our mom's husband. And that's okay, because our job is to love all of our family. We talk about them being all of our kids. Andrew refers to my kids as his kids. When we're talking, we have 7 children. We've got, the married kids and the extras, but these are ours. When we pray at night, we don't make a difference saying we're praying for these kids versus these kids. We're praying for all our kids. And so I think that that's a part of being secure in yourself, and don't try to force families to be the Brady Bunch. Let them figure out how this is going to fit and how this is going to work.
Well, today is part 2 in our conversation on Kim Har's top 10 reasons couples come for marriage counseling, at least at There's Hope Counseling, where you are the main counselor and therapist, Kim. We are on reason number 7 now, and it's a nice dovetail out of mismatched parenting styles and having blended families, at least issues that arise out of that topic. What about in-laws?
Okay, in-laws is another big subject, and really the subject with extended family is usually a lack of boundaries. Because just like when we get married, I'm used to my family, my partner's used to their family, and we can come with this idea of this is what it's always going to be like. So you may have one family that's more enmeshed, and with an enmeshed family, you make decisions as a big family. If somebody hurts one person's feeling, everybody knows it. We're always together. We're in each other's business all the time. And we think that we just call that, well, we're just a close, loving family. And then you may have a family that rarely sees each other, don't talk about anything, that love each other, but have very rigid boundaries, and is exactly the opposite. And so it's really important to realize when you get married, you're creating a new family. And when the Bible talks about we leave our families and we cleave to our spouses, and that becomes our family. And so we need to be able to have boundaries that say we're going to have privacy in our marriage. And this is where if you've got someone that comes from a more enmeshed family that is used to talking about everything, I may have somebody that comes to counseling that runs to a parent or a sibling and is talking about all the marriage problems, which is one of the worst things you can do, because you can forgive your spouse. You can be irritated and you can speak negative about your spouse. and you can forgive them.
But they don't.
But you know what? Your family, they're going to have your back, and it's going to be harder for them to forget that. And now it can actually change the dynamic when you guys get together, and your spouse always feels like they're being judged when they come, or there's shame, or there's embarrassment, and so it's really important to protect your new family and put boundaries around that say, this is what we do say, this is what we don't say. And I always tell my married couples, I always say, you should never talk to extended your families and even friends. I discourage talking about problems in your relationship because they're your friends. They're going to have your back. Who you should be talking to is whether it may be a pastor, it may be a licensed therapist, it may be an older couple that you go to for wisdom that can speak life into your marriage. And if you do have a good friend you're talking to, you just need to make sure that what they're saying back to you is bringing life, and it's encouraging you, and it's not going to be saying things like, well, man, if my husband or wife did that, I'd leave them. Mm-hmm. So you want to really guard who you are allowing to speak into your relationship. That is so important. So with the boundaries, there's, other issues is you can have parents that guilt their children, their adult children. I'll give you a really good example of this. I've got my middle daughter is married and lives in Texas. And when she comes home for the holidays, her in-laws live in the same town that I do. And so my daughter goes back and forth and back and forth. And I don't even want to know how many Christmas dinners she had to have or Thanksgiving dinners. And many times you will have a parent that says, well, do you love them more than me? Well, you spent an extra hour over there than you did with me. And well, fine, you go and I'll be fine. I'll be here by myself, but don't worry about it. I know you love me, but I put guilt. I don't. So I want to specify, I don't do that to my daughter. But people do. They can put guilt on their children trying to get their needs met through their children. And then that can cause problems between, spouses.
Okay, so if this is happening in a marriage, that there are meddlesome in-laws, it's the couple that's there seeing you as the therapist, mm-hmm. and they're needing some advice. So is it boundary setting? Is that what's needed? I
think it's absolutely boundary setting. And when a couple comes to see me, sometimes it's not just them coming to me saying, hey, help us with boundaries with our families. It may, and it can go either way. I'm just going to use this example as the wife. The wife may not see any problem with the lack of boundaries between maybe her and her family. And the husband's the one that's saying, okay, I can't get along with my in-laws. They belittle me when I go, and my wife just sweeps it under the rug and says, oh, they're just kidding. Or the husband can do that. It can be either side. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lack of boundaries, but we've got to get on the same page and say, if something's important to my partner, it needs to be important to me. And more than anything, we as spouses need to protect each other and realize, I like to use the example of a lantern. With that little, the flame that's flickering, we need to protect that flame of our marriage and not let all the outside wind come in and blow that flame out. We've got to guard that and protect that at all cost. And so that's a part. Now, this is also in healthy relationships, because there are relationships that aren't healthy where it's more controlling, where one partner may try and keep you away from your family, and that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a healthy relationship where you've got a husband and a wife that may be disagreeing, but we're not talking about control or abuse.
So let's take an example of boundary setting before we move on to the next item here. What could the son say to his parents if there's a problem with the wife, which would be the daughter-in-law, and the parents?
Well, I think that the first thing is asking the couple first is like if the son is going to his parents because his parents have offended his wife. There's a part of having a conversation with the wife of, what is the issue? What is it that she's needing? And let's say she's feeling like they insult her or discount her when she goes over, or they may say something about her house not being clean, or they may use it as a joke, or let's just use that as an example.
Okay.
That it's the son, his mom and dad are kind of joking when they come over about, oh, your house is never clean, and it hurts the wife's feelings. Well, first of all, the parents may not have intended to hurt the wife's feelings, but you don't want the husband to sweep that under the rug and say, well, they didn't mean it, and you've got a thin skin. There's a part of hearing his wife and saying, help me understand, and asking, would you like me to go? And I'm going to go say something to my family. But how he says that it's not just going there and laying down the law. It may be going and starting with a conversation that says, Mom and Dad, this may or may not have been your intent. But when this was said, it came across really hurtful. And so this is what I'm going to ask is when we come over to visit, would you be really conscientious of not mentioning things like the house is messy or the kids misbehaved, or would you just kind of be aware of that? Well, that may be the very first part of a boundary, and that may be all you need. Mm-hmm. You may have a parent that says, absolutely, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intent. Now, if you've got a parent that continues to do that and isn't going to respect that, then it may be a boundary that says, you know what, if this comes up, I want you to know that we're going to have to cut our visit short because I'm not going to let my wife be, spoken to like that. It may not be your intent. It's not kind, but I need to put a stop to it. So that's going to be a different level of a boundary.
What's your website, Kim?
My website is there'shopehere.com.
And in case somebody has to go inside now and can't hear the rest of this interview, it is archived on our website, oasisnetwork.org. Everybody else stay tuned. But the archive is in the Roadshow section, along with Part 1. That was the previous program that we did. But as we go to break, tell us about that special offer you have. It's free, and there are no strings attached. You have something that you want to give
strings attached
to our listeners.
If any of the listeners would like to get a copy, I have a PDF copy called 20 Tips to Cultivate a Loving Marriage That Will Stand the Test of Time. We're going to focus on the positive things I can do instead of the negative. Mm-hmm. And all you need to do, if you want that, just send me an email at kim@there'shopehere.com, and I will shoot that to you in an email.
All right, Kim Haar is here. I'm David Warren, your host, and when we come back, Kim will share some tools regarding these couples issues. What to do when you no longer feel in love with your partner, life transitions, and finally, seeking marriage counseling as a last-ditch effort before filing for divorce. Kim and I will be back right after this.
The Roadshow is a listener favorite which airs each weekday here on the Oasis Radio Network starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central. The Roadshow also has a great section on our website, oasisnetwork.org. There you'll find audio archives of select past interviews, plus guest lineup and contact information, and links to our Roadshow sponsors and its host. So join us for the Roadshow, whether on your radio, computer, or mobile device at oasisnetwork.org.
It's Therapy Day on the Roadshow. I am David Warren, and our friend Kim Haar is here. She is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And we are giving more of the top 10 reasons couples go to see Kim for marriage counseling. And Kim, before we dive back in and pick back up, I should say, with reason number 8, tell us why you chose this as a career.
I became a counselor when I was an adult. I think I was actually almost 40 when I became a licensed therapist. And I became a therapist because during a time when I needed therapy, I didn't feel like I got the help I needed. And so I determined I was going to go back and I was going to become a therapist that offered hope.
And here you are.
And here I am.
All right. And the name of your practice is?
There's Hope Counseling.
There'shopehere.com is your website. And again, on the email for the PDF that you want to send the listeners.
Just send it at kim@there'shopehere.com.
All right. So we're going to dive back in now to the top 10 reasons couples go to see you for marriage counseling. And it's number 8, a big E, no longer feeling in love with my partner.
That's right. This goes along with expectations that couples can have, is that I'm always going to feel in love. And love is not a feeling.
I was going to say, what is feeling in love?
You know what?
How do you define that?
Feelings come and go. And I think people think, oh, if I see my partner and I just can't wait to be with them and I just want to smile all the time and they complete me. Okay, that's not love. That's feelings. Love is a verb and it is a choice. I like to tell clients, rather than wondering, did I marry the right spouse? Ask yourself the question, am I being the right spouse? Because every couple goes through a period of time, and if you haven't yet, most likely you will have a time when you think, oh my goodness, did I marry the right person? I don't feel like I love them. But when you realize that's just a feeling. And feelings come, feelings go, and there's a decision that says, I've made a commitment, and if we're in a low spot, we're going to start putting in some deposits and working on this because feelings come and go. So lots of times I will hear, well, I don't feel like I'm in love, and we're just doing transactional things. The fun is gone. All we do is we get up, go to work, come home, make supper, watch TV, get the kids to bed, and tomorrow we just repeat it again. And so what happens is couples stop putting in the work to keep marriage hot. And I like to use the example of if I have a cup of coffee and I pour a cup of coffee in my hand and I put it down and I don't do anything, I just leave it there. It's good coffee, but if I don't do something to maintain it being hot, it's going to go cold. And it's not anything I did, it's what I didn't do.
Good point.
So if I want my coffee hot, I've either got to go put it in the microwave, add hot coffee to it, put it on a coffee warmer. So I have to be willing to put in the effort for what I want. And so that's a part with marriages is rather than, well, I don't feel in love, well, what am I doing? And some tools that I like to give my clients is I'll talk to them about building a culture of appreciation, which is work by John Gottman, who is a marriage researcher. And it's sharing what are the things that I appreciate about you on a regular basis. And it's not just saying, hey, thank you that you made supper. It may be the words, you know what, I appreciate how hard you work when you come home and you do it with such a smile. And I just want you to know I appreciate that. You know what, it takes moments to say that, but that deposit can change the way somebody feels. And so regularly look for the things that you appreciate or love about your partner, even if it's a stretch. Find something. In the morning, think, I'm going to tell my partner something tonight, something good about them, rather than complaining they breathe too loud, rather than telling them to, pick up their nail clippings. So it's really look for the good, and that's what you're going to find.
Do you suggest that a husband or wife text the other during the day?
I think that in moderation, because sometimes I will get somebody that says, well, I'm at work and I don't like texts because the texts are very, very long and they're talking about problems and the kids are driving me crazy or who's going to get this. So if you're going to text, a really great text is saying, you know what, you don't have to respond. I just wanted to tell you I was thinking about you. That's a great text.
Yeah, so don't bring up the problems in a text unless it's an emergency.
Don't rehearse the argument we had last night and say, I should have said I was sorry because I didn't do this, but I only did this because you did this. So don't do that. Text messages, I like to call them hit and runs. It's like send it and make it sweet, make it short, and say, you know what, I love you, and thinking of you brings a smile to my face. The end.
All right, so you've got to come up with a new one. You can't use that one you just said. So what will you text Andrew sometime today? That you can share.
That I can share. Andrew and I flirt throughout the day. I mean, sometimes I will take a selfie from my nose up with just my eyes, and I'll say, popping in to see you. He may send me something that just says, I'm thinking about you and can't wait to see you tonight. When I text and say, hey, I'm on my way home, he may send me a text, and it may be silly and goofy, but he'll say something like, yippee or yabba dabba doo. And you know what? It makes me want to get home to him. So sending those, whether it's just a smile, whether it's an emoji, whether, it's saying, you're on my mind. In a good way.
I'm smiling through this portion of today's interview. The 9th reason couples make an appointment to see you, Kim, is because they are going through a life transition of some sort.
Yep.
Give us
Lots
some
of
examples.
Stress. Yeah, life transitions can be when you have a new baby. It may be you move houses. You may change jobs. It can be your empty nesting is a transition. So any kind of a transition is normally going to bring stress. And when we're stressed, that's when we tend to lash out at each other. That's when we're more short-tempered. That's when we don't have the extra, ability to not make a big deal, something that's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. We tend to make things a big deal. So the important thing is when you're going through life transitions or times of stress, the first thing is make sure that you've got your physical needs met. Make sure you're getting sleep, you're eating properly, make sure that you're in community, you're exercising, because you want to have some stress relievers. Be willing to ask for help. If you're going through a stressful situation, and let's say you've had a new baby, you know what? It may be asking a friend, would you help us? Would you bring us a dinner? We're just really struggling right now. It may be lowering your expectations. Again, when you've got young kids, stress can be, I think my house has to be clean all the time when somebody comes over. And it may be lowering that expectation that says, you know what, if there's toys out everywhere, as long as I have the dishes and the sink done, I'm going to call it good. And I used to like telling people, if you want to see me, come anytime. If you want to see my house, make an appointment. Give me time to clean it. So now with life stressors, one I want to really highlight, though, a higher level age that is going through divorce is called gray divorce. And it is seeing couples that have been married 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 years. They're usually age 55 and older. It's called gray divorce, I think, because we think of gray hair on our heads. And it's happening because we haven't been maintaining our relationship all along the way. So now that the kids are gone, we feel like strangers, and it feels like we're having to start all over again. And now maybe I'm realizing I don't like you anymore. There may be better fish in the sea. I'm more financially stable, so I can do it on my own. As we get older, sometimes there's health issues that come into play. And so that's a higher age that you need to make sure, don't take that for granted. Be really nurturing your relationship now.
So what would you do with a couple that's seated in front of you? Let's say we're in our 60s, the kids are grown, and it's kind of back to that, I no longer feel in love, or I just feel numb.
Mm-hmm. I think I tell them a lot of the same things I do all my couples. It's start to date again. Start to get to know each other again, and get to know yourself and who you are now. Because you're not the same person you were 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 15 years ago. We all change and we all grow. So it's not like, well, I know all your stories and I know everything about you. It's begin to spend time and build that friendship. Get to know, what are your dreams for the future? Let's dream together. Let's go on dates together. Let's get in counseling if we need to. Swallow your pride. And even though you've been married a really long time, get in counseling if you need it. Because sometimes we just need help to get back on the right path.
This would be a good time to bring up that packet that you're giving for free to anybody who contacts you. And your email address is kim@there'shopehere.com. I think this would be a good segue into that, because that's what this is about.
That's right. For any listeners that want, I have got a free PDF. It's about 7 pages, and it's called 20 Tips to Cultivate a Loving Marriage That Will Stand the Test of Time. And it gives the positives of what to do. We don't focus on just the what not to do's.
Can you read any of those?
Sure. Some of those...
You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, I would like you to read some of those, and then we will dive into our 10th and final reason why couples make an appointment to see you, all right? But the website address for today's guest, Kim Harr, is there'shopehere.com. And if you already had your pen in hand, that email address for the packet we'll talk about on the following segment and the wrap-up of today's program and this 2-part series, kim@there'shopehere.com. kim@there'shopehere.com. I'm David Warren. Kim Harr and I will be back for the wrap-up after this. I'm David Warren, Program Director at Oasis Radio Network and one of the hosts of this podcast. All of our hosts enjoy hearing from you, our listening family, so drop us a note. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and you'll receive new episodes on your mobile devices. And now, back to the show. Well, it has been another great road show with our friend Kim Har, who is a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we have been talking about the top 10 reasons couples go to see Kim for marriage counseling. If you missed part 1, because this is part 2, it's archived in the Roadshow section of our website, oasisnetwork.org, along with everything we've discussed today. So both parts 1 and 2 are together in the archive. Just look for something that says therapy or Kim. You'll find it near the top there. We always try to place the shows that are airing currently near the top for easy access. Again, that's our website, oasisnetwork.org. Click on the Roadshow section and then go to the archives. And Kim, it's always a delight to have you with us. We are down to the 10th and final reason that people make an appointment to see you. And will you tell us what that 10th reason is?
Yes, the 10th reason is the one I don't like, is when couples have waited so long and usually one partner has given an ultimatum and said, either you go with me to counseling or we're divorcing. But by the time a couple is at that point, it is extra hard working with a couple. I usually tell couples, you've got to make a commitment. If you're going to work with me, we've got to take even the idea of divorce off the table for at least 6 months. Because we've got to know we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to do the hard work. We've got to make that commitment that we're really going to try. Because if it's just saying, hey, we're going to say we went to counseling, so we already know we're going to divorce. Nobody's going to judge us because we can say, the therapist didn't help us. Mm-hmm. I always say, don't set me up for that because I'm good, but not that good. It's really going in. We take the word divorce off the table, and that means even in their when they're at home, because a lot of times couples will argue and they will throw out the word divorce. Well, let's just divorce. Well, we may as well divorce. Well, fine, let's just get a divorce. And every time you're doing that, you're speaking into the universe. You are speaking life and death, and you're speaking that over your marriage.
Kim, if only one of the spouses is willing to go to therapy, is it still worth making an appointment if the marriage is in trouble?
It is. It is. Now, sometimes it's not as effective as if you've got two people that are agreeing to work on it, but having one person come in and just get guidance on, okay, you know what, these are things I'm struggling with. How can I respond? Because it may be I just need to learn how I need to make my requests known a little bit better. I need to be able to maybe make my complaints known without it seeming like I'm attacking and I'm criticizing, but I need to be able to say, you know what, this is something that hurt my feelings. So sometimes one person coming is really going to be effective too, because when you change one part of the equation, the other part can't help but change.
All right.
Some of the things, too, is when you're asking about if one spouse comes to therapy. I get often asked, hey, how do I get my partner to come with me? I'll have somebody that calls me, and when they make a marriage appointment, I will ask, is your partner in agreement? Because I don't want anybody drug into my office. I've had that before, and those are horribly hard sessions, both for me and for the other partner. And so I think that there's a part of, if you want to go to marriage counseling, ask your partner, and if they're hesitant, don't want to go, maybe share why you would like to go. Maybe that you want to become a better partner, and don't nag them. Ask them maybe would they be willing to listen to a marriage podcast with you, and it might not be counseling or read a book, but don't drag them.
Well, I promised before the break that you would just run down a few of these tips that are in the packet you're willing to send to anybody who will email you at kim@there'shopehere.com, which is your website.
That's correct.
kim@there'shopehere.com. Just briefly go down a few of those if you would.
Sure. The first one is practice an attitude of appreciation, is what we've talked about. One is connect with your spouse throughout the day. Don't try to change your partner. Learn your spouse's love language and then begin speaking that to them. Notice and accept their bids for connection. Make your spouse a priority. Don't put your kids before your relationship with your spouse, and have fun together. That's just a teaser.
All right.
There's more.
So the email address for the packet, no cost at all, and you won't be calling them.
No spam.
During the dinner hour.
I won't be calling your spouse for you, I promise.
Kim@there'shopehere.com. Kim@there'shopehere.com. And check out Kim's website, there'shopehere.com. There's a nice video at the beginning of it, and you can see what she looks like. She is beautiful and also a delight to be with. And I know you know this, listening family, Kim Har. Well, we like to end with good news, and that is there's hope, there's help, There's healing. Just a few seconds left. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
I would say don't write your marriage off. If your partner wants to go to counseling, go. If they don't, begin depositing in your relationship. Ask God for wisdom and ask the Lord to give you His eyes for your partner. Love them like Jesus.
Amen. Thank you, Kim. Well, for Kim Har, I'm David Warren, and it's been
Another great Roadshow.
You've been listening to The Roadshow. If you'd like to write to us, here's our address. The Roadshow, P.O. Box 1924, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 74101. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. The views of today's guest aren't necessarily those of this station, but we do appreciate and thank our guest for spending this time with us. The Roadshow, an Oasis Network presentation.